No, I just have water. I'm good. Thank you though.
All right. John Orman. And it is the third, right?
It is the third.
I just named my son Steve Cook. He's going to be the third.
See, he's the third.
Yeah, well, we all got different middle names, but so I guess not technically. But.
No, mine are the same. Well, he definitely wouldn't be listening to this. The first two aren't really worth much, but it still matters. One of them's still around, so it's I have to sign it that way and everything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, gotcha. Yeah. That's funny.
So you're the second, or are you junior?
I'm second. Yep. A little bit different there. But yeah, I've got like I said, I've got a lot of respect for business people and stuff like that. So I wanted to, have you on, pick your brain. You've worked with. I tried to do as much research as possible. As far as I could tell, you worked for Locke Supply for a long time, right?
Yeah, since 1996. I actually started when I was still in high school, and I left for like 11 months in 2000, but I came back, so I was only gone.
Where'd you go in for the 11 months? Was it a hiatus or another
No, my parents, my dad was a machinist, and my parents had a machine shop for since 90, or even a little bit longer than that, actually. I can't remember exactly, but they'd had a machine shop for a while, and I grew up working in that machine shop with my dad, and he it was my stepdad, but anyway, I learned how to run mills and lathes and stuff like that, and when I was 14, and that was a job that I had as a teenager, and when I stopped doing that and actually got a tax-paying job, I sort of found Locke and had progressed through Locke until 99 and 2000, and my parents had been after me for a while to move and work that business.
Mm-hmm.
And so they finally convinced me to do that, and so I'd left Locke and love Locke, but I was in Ponca City at that time. I'd moved around a couple of times, and was ready to leave there, and so I moved home with them and invested a lot of time and money in that, and we were really doing well, but it just happened to be at that period of time where there was an election coming, and Unit Parts was the company that farmed all of their business out to another machine shop, which my parents got then all of their business from that company. And so that's sort of how, and my parents had.
So you had a connection there.
Yeah, they hadn't diversified very much yet,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just starting that. And 6 months after I moved and quit working for Locke and went to work with my parents, Unit Parts picked up their manufacturing facility and moved it to Mexico, and it bankrupted me and my parents.
Oh.
And so we tried to stay alive for just afloat for a couple of weeks, but I drew. I've been working since I was 14, so I hadn't had a job. I've been without a job in that time, and I drew one unemployment check. I couldn't handle it. And
Don't want to go back.
No, and I told my parents, I said, I love you, but I can't live like this. I have to have a job, and went back to Locke. So.
Gotcha. So did you go back to the same place you were? I'm assuming you were at like one location at the time or something. Or?
No, yeah. So the headquarters is there in Oklahoma City,
Mm-hmm.
and we had. I started out in the warehouse and worked in the warehouse at nights, pulling orders for a couple of years, and then I moved to Stillwater and worked in one of the branches.
Oh, okay.
And I'll kind of give you some background about the company here in just a minute, but I worked in that branch for about 9 months, and they offered me a position managing a branch in Ponca City, so I picked up and I moved to Ponca, and I was there for about 15 months. And after I left and went to Lawton with my parents, and because my parents at that time had then moved to Lawton from Oklahoma City, and when the business failed and everything kind of went down that way, I was mentally out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to manage anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just called my previous supervisor, who was one of the pillars and longtime vice president of Locke Supply, and his name is Louis Severe. And I said, Louis, I need a job. And I said, what can you do? And he said, let me see what I can do. And the guy that originally hired me, that still was in the warehouse, called me the very next day and said, are you looking? And I said, sure. And he said, when can you start? And I said, now. He said, be here
this
Monday.
afternoon.
Yeah, and I said, okay, be there Monday. So, and that kind of went from there.
Been there ever since. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So talking about, the scope of the business now, 180 stores, is that right?
So we have 179 different selling facilities.
Okay.
So that's either a sales office or but they all process transactions.
Sure.
We'll call it that way.
Okay.
But we only have about 70 physical properties.
Okay.
So we serve electrical, plumbing, HVAC, those three segments, plus the commercial offsets of them.
Okay.
And so we serve the professionals. So in one building, we'll have a 35,000 square foot building, but we'll have 3 different selling counters, 3 different disciplines.
Gotcha.
So while we only have roughly 70 facilities, I have 3 different managers, 3 different inventories.
And they're running different businesses, basically.
They share a roof because those disciplines, the professional contractors, Mr. Locke found out a long time ago, that's convenience for them.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll end up with is you'll have maybe a plumber that's just a plumber and he has a plumbing business. But you'll also have a guy that has an HVAC business, and then you'll have guys that have both. And so those 3 disciplines that he added and created, he learned that, for the most part, a plumber doesn't want to stand next to an electrician.
Yeah.
And so we split the counters up for that reason, and it's worked really well for us. So we share roofs and share resources, but there are 3 different selling facilities.
And it's very much B2B. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We sell to the retail, but we don't advertise that way. I'm not a contractor. I mean, if I walked in today, we'll definitely sell to me. I mean,
Sure.
There's a few items that we can't, but we don't advertise that way.
Right.
There's separate pricing structures. So our business model is the professional. That's who we're trying to serve.
Sure.
We'll do the other things, but that's not our core business.
Right.
Which sometimes gets us in a little bit of trouble on social media, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Because you're not trying to reach a retail type clientele.
We don't advertise that way. We don't.
Sure.
We don't do that.
Gotcha. As far as like your day to day, what does it look like for, are you just putting out fires all day? Is it, because I would imagine that when it gets to your point,
you mean from my chair?
It's a real issue, right? I mean,
so Locke Supply is structured really well. My predecessor, Tammy Bryant, I worked with her for nearly 10 years, almost every day, and I was her COO.
Okay.
And wasn't always in that position, but I progressed up to there, especially the last few years of her position when she was CEO. But the team that we built in preparation, because she had a retirement plan and we had things in place. The team that we built before she retired is the team that's currently in place, and it's pretty solid. So I'm very fortunate to have a group of people around me that help manage and operate the organization, and I just couldn't have a better group of people with that. So to be honest, if any of the associates listen to this, they're like, he doesn't do anything. Different level of anything, but no, it's not all putting out fires. A lot of it is, but when COVID happened, I have to travel a lot.
Gotcha.
Different conferences, different meetings, and things like that.
Is that mostly with like vendors and stuff, or?
Yeah, so we're part of a buying group, a marketing group called Affiliated Distributors.
Okay.
And it is basically, if you're in that group, you network with like businesses throughout the United States and Canada and Mexico.
Gotcha.
And so we have multiple meetings, and they have multiple segments, including all the ones we're in.
Uh-huh.
So we have multiple meetings and conferences like that, and you go and you spend a couple of days talking with other business leaders and other distributors about your problems and your successes, and it's really good networking, and it's phenomenal, and we very much enjoy it. So I travel for that plus other things, and so I had a lot of travel involved. But when COVID happened, 50% of my calendar just went blank.
Cleared out.
Yeah. So right now,
are you working from home a lot, or?
No, I don't like to work from home.
Gotcha.
I still go to the office. We're an essential business, so
sure.
We have a special responsibility to the community, and I explained this to some of the associates because they asked why isn't Locke Supply closed down? And I said, well, and I would send email communications because we have like 1,300 employees, and we would tell them, said, listen, you think of it this way: if businesses like us don't stay open, you'll have hundreds of thousands of people across the nation without hot water in a matter of a week. And so you just can't do that. So we have a special responsibility to the communities to be open. So that made it really easy for us to stay open, and we put some restrictions and stuff in place. But we stayed there for the contractors and for the communities. And I'm not somebody that likes to work from home, so I go to the office.
Gotcha.
I try to separate that as much as I can. It's healthy.
Yeah.
And works really well. But I can. But in all disclosure.
not to.
If I tell you if I'm working from home, that's a lie. I'm not working from home. My phone's always with me, but that's a lie. I'm not working.
I hate it because if something stressful happened, I'll be like, "Be quiet." I'm a worse parent.
I have some of the management team. I kind of forced them to, just because we were a little bit unsure about the degree of COVID, what it was going to be.
It was kind of wonky for a little while.
Yeah, so there was a period of time where some of the management team didn't want to, but I unfortunately didn't have a choice. I said, well, you guys are going to split up and do it this way, because we had to protect the company first. And so put some safety stuff in place for a few weeks, and they did that, and some liked it, some didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So some people it works for really well, some it doesn't. Unfortunately, I didn't have to do that. So
yeah,
I kept going.
That's awesome. Do you, talking about your role, how does, like for me, it's almost like overwhelming trying to think of, with only the 2 stores and us like about to have a third, I'm like, okay, to grow the sales or whatever, I'm so hands-on now. It's like, I got to do this. I got to do this. How do you, grow a company, or, whatever it might be, the best way to grow a company, or, how do you have control over when you have that many employees, that many locations? How can you make decisions that would grow the, you know what I mean? Is it mostly strategic planning, or is it,
some of it is. We've been, luckily for me, and my predecessors and many of the people that came before the team that's in place today, they laid out a plan, pretty basic plan, and we've duplicated that over the years. But a lot of it is that team that I was telling you about. So Locke Supply is great. I can't say enough about it. I could sit and tell you all day long how wonderful the organization is. Now that sounds a little bit maybe arrogant from the position I have, but it really is. We're 100% employee owned. It's an ESOP. It has been since Mr. Locke passed away. And it's been a great thing for the organization.
How does that work? I read about that several times. Y'all have that. I mean, y'all advertise that, I guess,
yes,
pretty regularly. How does that exactly work?
So it's the employees own the company. So what it is they after he passed away, his widow had the company, and the management team at the time. He really wanted it to be the employee's company, and so they fulfilled that. And so what happens is you go to the bank and you borrow the money and you buy it from him, and then they create shares, and so it's
gotcha.
And then
it's relatively publicly. It's kind of like a public company, but it's all private.
It's not. Yeah. It's so there's shares, and then the associates, as you pay off the loan, the associates get allocated shares as a percentage of their income, and so all those shares continue and then get allocated. So they bought 66% of the company in 2000, and then the remaining 34% in 2004. And then in 2007, actually had it all paid off. So the entire company was owned by the employees at that time. And so what happens is as people retire or they exit the organization, their shares are purchased back. And then every year, those shares are then reallocated back to the other employees that remain.
So the company purchases shares from when you... Okay,
yeah, so
gotcha.
It's like an additional retirement. We have additional retirement benefit. We have several associates that have been there since inception, and manager level associates, guys that operate the branches, and there's within 5 years we'll have many millionaires.
Wow.
So it's a retirement benefit. It is completely and totally, that's what it's for.
Now, is there a way that you can, I mean, like a publicly traded company, is there a way that you can like see how much the company's worth, your stocks are worth, like in a sense? Or
it's only ESOPs are only evaluated once a year.
Okay.
It's not like the stock market where it changes daily. There's a finite number of shares. You can't add more, sell more. You can't buy more, that kind of stuff. But
gotcha.
But it's that part has been really good for the company. But as far as expansion and man, the team that you put around you makes all the difference in the world. Giving associates the ability and empowerment to make a decision is something that I would highly recommend, or else you're going to bury yourself.
Yeah.
So I would. I keep hitting your table, and that keeps making.
It's fine. Sorry. You probably can't even hear it on the mic.
No, but it's that makes a big difference. But for us, we found something that worked. A model that we like, and we've tweaked it. Mike Musney, who is our COO today, he and I have worked together for a long time, and we kind of have tweaked our building structure and the way things are laid out, and plus a few other guys have. We've just sort of got it kind of down to an art now. And so it's just a matter of finding communities that we want to be in. And then it's okay, find that, and now go find the guys, the associates to help manage those branches. Our distribution center, continues to it's sort of maxed out.
Where's that? Is that in Oklahoma City as well? The distribution center,
Southeast 82nd, 935.
Gotcha.
If you ever want to come by, I'll give you a tour. It's roughly 650,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's on 46 acres.
That's awesome.
So we're in the middle of a lot of refurbishing. The original building, we're actually refurbishing right now. The original warehouse, it was built in the 60s.
Wow.
And so it's going on, and we do it all pretty much in house. We have
really.
Yeah, we have.
You got plumbers and electricians, I guess.
You
got all the supplies, anyways.
We got the supplies, but we have a HVAC contractors and electrician. We don't have a plumbing contractor.
You make sure that they're customers first before you hire them?
Well, so we actually have a couple of the guys, they work for us.
Oh, gotcha.
So
okay.
they're employees.
Full time.
Yeah, they're full-time employees, but we, it was this many facilities, it makes more financial sense to just hire a guy.
Have your own. Yeah, have it in the house.
But as far as expansion, when you're asking, man, it's you guys got to start with your people.
Yeah.
You don't do it without that. So
right.
I think if you understand your market and you understand your clientele, then you know where you need to expand to and what it takes. And then it's just, duplicate.
Keep doing it.
Just replicate what you're doing.
Years and years.
Keep doing it. Yeah. We're really close to, we acquired a company last year in Virginia. And so we actually have some East Coast operations.
Wow.
We're very close to locking up a lease in the Midlothian area. It's a Richmond suburb, and so we'll have a Locke Supply out there as well. That'll be our we're in 7 states.
Gotcha. So. That's awesome. Do you at some point, does it make more sense to, acquire, like you're saying, acquire other businesses that are kind of in your same industry already at some point?
It can geographically, if it works and makes sense, it definitely can, and we've looked at that and we still look at that. We in the last 18 months we've made at the end of 18 we acquired a manufacturing facility that was a supplier. So Locke Supply is actually a customer of that supplier, but
Gotcha.
They are also under the Locke Supply umbrella now too. And that was our very first acquisition. And then last year in July, we acquired a company called Resco, Richmond Electric Supply Company in Virginia. It's kind of expensive to do that, but you can. And if you get a good foundation underneath it, it makes a lot of sense. But then also organic growth is just as good.
Sure.
A little less expensive.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Are you... and I guess this is kind of like your vision for the company or whatever. You had mentioned acquiring a supplier. Do you think that it makes more sense at this point that you guys start kind of vertically integrating in the sense that you start making your own products and stuff like that, or?
It to some degree. So that particular supplier was a Cody company, and Locke Supply and Cody had done business for 30 plus years, and their owner and Mr. Locke were friends. They
gotcha.
A relationship.
That's cool.
So that was kind of neat. The ESOP really appealed to the John Cody was the man, and he passed away I think in 2010, and his widow was looking for a way to exit, and so we started conversations. Tammy Bryant, who was our previous CEO, had started conversations, and it seemed like a really good fit, and we just went down that road. The verticalness of it made sense. The comfortability, the fact that we are a large portion of their business, made you feel like, okay, even if this didn't go well, at least there's some security with that. And so that was a good first step. But the vertical nature of things makes sense in this particular regard. That being said, too, a lot of HVAC distributors also own sheet metal manufacturing, and that's what they do.
Right. So. Gotcha. That's cool. Are you, you said the ESOP, do decisions get made with an ESOP? Does it have to be approved by some sort of board or voting or something like that? Like big decisions like that? Like acquiring a company. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a board of governance. So I'm governed by a board. We have 2 internal board members, myself and our COO, and then 3 external.
Oh, gotcha.
But one of those board members is our previous CEO, and she's chairman of
cool.
the board. And then we have two.
And she was the CEO for quite a while, right?
Since 2011. Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
And she'd been at Locke. Tammy'd been at Locke since she was 17, and so if I tell you how long she's been there, then that's going to tell you how old she is. If she
And then you're in trouble.
she'll be mad at me. So, no, she was wonderful, great mentor, very phenomenal lady. But anyway, she's chairman of the board.
Gotcha.
I'd asked her if she would please stay on, and she is a good balance. We worked together for a long time, and so I can always kind of lean on her for mentorship still.
Yeah.
Which is really good. But then we have two other gentlemen that are outside that are in the industry and really sharp guys. So basically, what happens if there's a company we want to acquire,
Mm-hmm.
myself and my management team like.
Mm-hmm.
We take it to the board, and the board has to have final approval.
It comes down to a vote, basically?
It can come
Is
down
it
to
unanimous or just majority wins? Or
Majority.
Majority,
Yeah,
gotcha.
so they'll evaluate everything and go through there. If there's something that, if we need to go out and do some large CapEx stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Anything over a certain dollar amount, the board has to approve.
Gotcha. So there's
safety,
rules around it or whatever you want to call it?
Checks and balances in place. But day-to-day operations, the board's not involved in.
Of course.
Normal stuff. But when you start talking about adding debt to the bottom line or adding debt to the company, they get some say.
That's interesting. That's
So
really cool.
Their main responsibility in an ESOP is to do what's best for the shareholders,
Watch out for
which are the employees. So
yeah, that makes sense. How do you talked about how a lot of your business, or majority of your business, I would imagine, is B2B.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling to professionals, like you'd said. How do you, because we do a lot of that as well. We are selling to, like you'd said, whether it's a rodeo person, they're trying to win money, or whether they're a professional trainer, they're training horses for money, or whatever. Yep. How do you market to those people, or how do you guys market to professional? How do you sell more? Do you have sales reps, or
So we have different business segments. I should have brought Jerry with me. Jerry Herring's our VP of sales and marketing, and he's the rodeo guy I was telling you about.
Oh, gotcha.
Or he used
Forget bringing him with you. He can have his own podcast.
I know, right? You should let me know. I'll have him come down and visit with
That'd
you.
be
There's
awesome.
a couple of guys that talk to you. But anyway, he would be able to talk more, and I don't know much about what you guys do. And I'm not a horse guy, but I can tell you that Locke Supply has multiple segments. So not only are we in plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, but we're in the commercial businesses of those same things, and those are different. So you can, an electrician that works residentially or a plumber that works residentially isn't always the same guy that works commercially. So they are separate tiers of what goes on. And so the commercial guys, those are guys, and the larger contractors, they kind of have their own salesman. A guy that calls on them and takes care of them. And then you've got a lot of smaller contractors, the individual plumber, guy that maybe runs one or two trucks, probably doesn't have a salesman, but he frequents a location, and so the branch managers and the branch associates
they're in charge of,
they're sort of
keeping tabs on those people.
Yeah, take care of those guys. And so the guys that require a little bit more attention get a little bit more attention, and the other guys, we want to be able to service. You have a lot of individual plumbers, individual contractors, and so most distributors, in my opinion, sometimes overlook those guys, and we don't overlook those guys. Those are the guys we want to take care of.
How do you set up? Is it just because it's employee owned and all that, and they care more about the, how do you set up? Do you have a system around that?
As far as
keeping tabs on those guys, or
it's their job.
They just do it.
So everybody at Locke Supply, in some fashion or another, is incentivized by the company's success.
Sure.
So at branch locations, it's a sales-driven job. It's a sales-driven business.
Okay.
The more successful the company is, there's an incentive opportunity, financial incentive opportunity on a monthly basis.
And you're not only talking about the employee owned. You mean, they're on some sort of commission.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's not a commission. It's tied directly to the company's profitability. So if the company is not profitable, then there's not an incentive to be paid. But if the company is profitable and the associates make it profitable, then there's an incentive to be paid.
Gotcha.
And so there's a couple different ways that we pay our associates, and that incentive is a big driver for a lot of people. And so when you're when you're talking about them wanting to succeed and take care of that contractor, I mean, it actually is tied to their financial success.
Right.
But then also it's just a standard core. Should be, right? Every business is a service business, and
right.
you're supposed to be providing customer service, and there's an expectation there. So
yeah,
it's that's what you sign up for, or at least I hope that's what they sign up for.
yeah,
And
yeah.
So sometimes it's not for everybody, and that's okay. But for 1,300 people, it seems to be for them.
Yeah.
And it seems to work really well.
That's awesome. Did y'all have a large spike in business over the last 60 or 90 days, or was it about the same? Or
ironically, Locke Supply has fared very well, especially from a residential standpoint.
yeah,
We took a little bit different approach to how we handled the COVID situation.
mm-hmm.
A lot of people shut their doors and wouldn't let their customers in. We did not do that. We put rules and standards in place, that allowed for social distancing, disinfecting, make sure 6 feet,
Safe practices, right.
Safe practices. And I feel like we communicated that pretty hard to everybody, like follow these rules and you'll be fine.
Made it actually important. Yeah.
But I wasn't going to tell a customer they can't come into our locations. I had one of my managers called me and asked me while this was going on, and he said, what about, do you think about shutting down the restrooms and not allowing people to go in the restrooms? And I said, let's think about it this way. I said, what if it was you that needed to come get a water heater for a customer that was out of hot water, and you needed to go to the restroom? Would you want that guy telling you no? And he's like, okay, fair point. And I said, listen, if people are just passerbys and they're not really patrons, and they should you have the restroom open for everybody? Maybe not. Maybe that's something you draw a line for right now on. But as far as your customer, we're not going to do that. So
yeah,
I think that made a big difference.
Do you had mentioned something about a branch manager? Do you talk to, how does your hierarchy go? Is it you, and then what else kind of underneath you?
I have 5 direct reports. 6.
Don't miss anybody.
I gotta mess up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 direct reports, and then they all have their teams, and it just sort of spreads out for there.
Okay.
We're pretty flat. We don't have a lot of middle management. There's only 6 officers in the company today, and at most I can see there being 6 or 7 even over the next, and then everybody has their own departments they go to. But with that being said, I grew up in the company, so a lot of the people that have been here as long as I have and or longer.
Oh, I know them from other. Yeah.
So I talked to, there's probably 15 or 20 managers that manage our branches today that I still have a pretty good relationship with, and they call and we visit about various things. And then we've got a lot of new, younger guys coming up that are really rock stars, and you kind of get to know those as well. And but we have an open door policy, so
cool.
Anybody can call. I mean, I won't say his name, but I mean, I got a phone call last night at 9 o'clock from a branch manager. So, but
that's
just
awesome.
Asking me about some different stuff. But so it's that's pretty good. But as far as the direction, we're trying to put a few layers in place, and so we have directors of over the branches and all the selling locations, and then the officers, have, like I said, their people and their teams. And it just sort of,
so that way there's some sort of accountability and stuff like that, basically.
Yeah. As you're growing, if you're growing your business, I think, like you said, you're wanting to grow and do stuff. It's best advice I could give everybody. When I first started a long time ago, there were kind of older school guys that really didn't want to teach people how to do what they knew, because I think they did it out of fear for, if I teach you, then you can take my job, right?
Sure.
Well, there's a flip side to that, and the flip side is if I'm the only one that knows anything, then I'm going to imprison myself, and I'm going to bury myself here, and I can never leave.
I did that for years.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Or at least in my opinion, that's a bad practice. If you don't trust people and empower them and teach them to do the right things, then you're never going to be able to do anything else.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's really wise. Are you, as far as the distribution center, is the office and the distribution center kind of all in one?
Yeah, it's in one large complex.
Okay, gotcha. Is that a bulk of employees are there, or is that kind of?
No, gosh, man, what do we have there? maybe 300 people are there.
Gotcha.
And then Cody has about 150 in Ennis, Texas. And then all the rest of the associates are at the different sales locations all throughout the 7 states.
Spread out from there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. On the distribution side, how does that kind of work? Does everything come in there no matter what? Does some things, we've kind of been struggling with this in our own business, does everything ship there no matter what? Or does some things go directly? Like if it's a full semi-load of something, can it go directly to a store or something?
Yeah, I would say 98% of everything comes to the distribution center.
Okay.
My percentages might be off if my ops guy listens to this, he'll probably complain. Most everything comes to the distribution center.
Okay.
And it works really well, especially with your vendors as you're working with your vendors. But when you get full truckloads, like we have several locations that take full truckloads of water heaters or take equipment or flex duct or you name it. There are different areas where you can do that and you take advantage of it, but most everything does come through a distribution point.
Gotcha.
So from a vendor standpoint, vendors like that because they only have to ship to one location.
They know where they're going.
Other distributors in the nation, other friends of mine, don't have central distribution. And so they have, let's say they have 17 locations and no distribution. Their vendors have to ship to all 17.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
2 pallets here, 2 pallets here. Yeah.
See, for us, that's
does it help your pricing a lot? Do you think?
There's discounts involved. Yeah.
Enough to, do you think, and this is probably the question everyone's asking, is it enough to offset your distribution costs, you think? Or
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know. I've always wondered if people do it just because of the organization and things are more accurate, and you know what I mean?
So here's the deal. I grew up at Locke where I only know that.
Sure.
And what I know is it works very well. So I guess it also works the other way because a lot of our friends don't have distribution centers. But I know the larger they get, the more they want to talk about having distribution centers.
Right.
So I would say it works really well. But this, again, in fairness, is all I know.
Sure. Yeah. Where was the company kind of when you had started? Has it grown that much in your span, or has it always been about the same size?
No, it's grown quite a bit.
Really?
Let's see. I started in '96, and I remember, we've probably added 40 sales locations.
Gotcha.
Since then, it'd be a pretty hard guess. Because I wasn't involved in I was just an entry level kind of guy pulling stuff, but I remember a little bit. I know that we've added probably 400,000 square feet
to the distribution. You're saying just the distribution center?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because we added the east facility. One, two, three, plus some small ones. Close to that. I had somewhere between 350 and 400,000 square feet have been added.
That's crazy. Did you know Mr. Locke?
I got to meet him twice.
Now, is it father-son, or was it just?
It was just him.
It was just him. Okay.
He had a daughter, but she wasn't really involved in the business.
Oh, gotcha.
I think she worked at one of the locations, but it wasn't for a short period of time. But I don't.
Is she still? I mean, is she still around or involved in any way? Gotcha. That's interesting.
No, it's just the associates. No family members anymore. I got to meet him twice. I met him once at the distribution center. I met him once at my open house in Ponca City when he had an open house up there.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting fellow. I think in many ways ahead of his time. Definitely where I am, and most everybody would say to him. I mean, if he doesn't start this, we're not here.
Right.
But I think he recognized some stuff early on, and a couple of gentlemen that worked for him for many years, Chuck Cross, Louis Severe, they were very impactful in the business and the company, and they were longtime vice presidents, and 2 gentlemen that I worked with for a period of time as well, and they would tell me stories about him and some stuff he would do, so it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Are you talking about like where he came from to now? And then, I feel like kind of your job as CEO is to see, a few years in the future, at least, to some point. Mm-hmm. Where do you think, at least in our business, the feed industry is not a very sexy business. It's probably, very similar to yours. HVAC and plumbing hasn't really changed much. And, it has, but not, where do you see in 5 years from now, what are you guys working on that, you think the industry will lean towards, and not necessarily like in the weeds of specific products or anything like that, but, whether, retail won't be important anymore, or delivery is going to be very important, or our website, or, what are y'all focusing on?
Right now we spend a lot of time. We have an IT staff that's working. E-commerce is always a big conversation. So there's different schools of thought when it comes to e-commerce, especially in this industry,
and especially B2B. I mean,
So you get into some discussions there. First of all, you have to define what e-commerce is. So is email e-commerce? Is texting e-commerce? Right.
Right.
So you get into those sort of discussions, but a lot of web development and stuff like that going on. Customers, the generations that are coming into things now like to do things remotely.
Okay.
So, I mean, I could sort of envision with you guys the same way that we are. We're trying to create tools that work well for the new generation of contractors coming in, right? So you're going to have that. You're going to have that turnover. We're getting ready to. And so communicating with people and how they want to do business. So is it still going to be the same, I walk in and use you as my warehouse, or am I going to change the way I communicate with you to order? And that's in my opinion, it's really just about the way in which you communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So before there was cell phones, you came into the branch or you called on a landline, you went in, you picked up material. Well, now you can use a cell phone and maybe text an order in, or you can email and maybe do that, or you could just order it and then want to go pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. Couple of processes are the same, but it's just a different level of communication. And so there is some discussion and argument about how much of that business will change. But I think that's the biggest push that we have right now. I can see you guys. I don't know. Do you have a website?
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. We're trying to take orders online and do next day feed delivery and stuff like that. We're trying to be. Well? We're just getting it started 3 or 4 months ago, but it's
I can
catching
see that
on.
Being a very big deal for you guys, especially as you get clientele the same.
Mm-hmm.
Most of a lot of our business is built around repair and replacement, which is it's reactionary. So your water heater goes out, you call a plumber.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so you need a plumber to change the water heater, or your heat and air goes out and you need an air conditioner. You call a technician. So
and the majority of those guys are not keeping stuff in stock.
Right.
Right. I mean, they're
only the larger.
It's reactionary for them, and then they're reactionary to you, right? I mean,
right. Only the larger guys are going to keep product on hand.
Yeah.
But a 1-2 man shop, he's not keeping 4 water heaters in his garage.
Yeah.
So that's where we come into play.
Okay.
So we're still we want to make. You got to live in both worlds. We want to continue to do business that makes it easier for the smaller guy, but you also have to continue to do business.
Look to the future.
The other progression. So
yeah.
My VP of Ops, our VP of Ops is he and I have bets about how much of business will switch to e-commerce over a period of time and all that kind of stuff.
Are y'all currently taking orders online and store pickup or anything?
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Here again, a lot of our managers have great relationships with their customers.
Mm-hmm.
Customers sort of gravitate to the same stores.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these guys, man, they'll text, they'll email, they do stuff like that.
And is that a program through? We just started a texting deal, but we got a program to where 3 or 4 people can see it. So if one is not available to answer,
what's it called?
ZipWhip.
ZipWhip.
Yeah.
We actually looked at that. I don't think Kyle's put that in place. I don't think we have it in place.
Okay.
But I know it's something they've been looking at and
something you're thinking about.
Yeah, because a couple of our friends have it.
Gotcha.
And they've done it. We're still testing out. How many of the customers would do that?
Right.
Yeah. But I could see that being.
And that's a little more unique because you're turning your landline, so like our regular store number, into a MMS. Yeah. So I don't know if that would work in your situation because they might text the wrong branch or.
Well, they've got. I think the one we looked at was called ProKeep.
Huh.
I think Kyle was dealing with that, but it basically it took your same phone number and they could text to it and it would pop up on the screens. In the
gotcha.
Location.
Kind of alerted. Yeah.
So you could use your same number, but they tied it into a web browser, and you just keep that browser up and it would work like that.
Gotcha.
Is that how yours works?
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, very similar. That's interesting. What else? What else in your industry?
As far as like you said. It's not the sexiest thing, but the one thing that we continue to talk about with our associates is, and we need to do a better job of, and still doing that, is reminding them that we are essential.
Mm-hmm.
So what we serve and the products we serve, a lot of people, in my opinion, take for granted. So you think about the things you use every day. You use hot water. You use your air conditioner. You use your closet, which is you go to the bathroom, right? You use the toilet. So these are all things that are necessities in life.
If you don't think it's essential,
that's right.
Let your plumbing go out.
That's right. People take for granted, and they stop, and your lights don't work, right? And so all of these things that people sometimes I think take for granted, and they just diminish contractors. Like, people want to do stuff themselves, right? Which that's fine. But I promise you, that plumber and that electrician and that HVAC technician, they went to school. That they're a professional like anybody else, and they know what they're doing. And as technology changes, they become that much more important because, man, you don't want to be messing with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You try to install a gas valve and you do it incorrectly.
Good luck.
Yeah, kaboom. So you need these professionals out there doing their jobs, and I see as technology moves, condensers are getting a lot more technology. Water heaters are getting a lot more technology. I mean, it's not what it used to be, and so I think these people are important. One of the things that we also sort of see is that you have a generation of guys that are going to be retiring, and not as many people coming in the trades, and that's going to be real important.
I've heard trucking is kind of similar to that.
I get asked, if you're going to start a business, what would it be? Without question, I'd start a plumbing business tomorrow.
Wow.
Because you're going to have less and less
tradesmen. Supply and demand.
and you want to, look, is it the most exciting thing? I mean, it's not like you're a movie star or anything, but if you want to make a good living and you want to have a good life and you want to have a steady job.
Yeah. Consistent income
there's a way to do that.
It doesn't take many layoffs to get you figure it out. Consistent income is awesome. Huh. That's really interesting. Anything else you can think of?
As far as the future?
Yeah.
As far as Locke's concerned, we want to continue to try to expand and serve more communities and grow our ESOP. The biggest bulk of my responsibility is to continue to grow the ESOP and increase the share value and make things better for our associates. So.
And how do you? Is kind of the last question I could think of. How do you, when you go to, acquire, whether it's a company or a supplier, anything like that, and I don't know if you might bring people in to help you with those decisions, stuff like that. Of course, I don't know if you do that or not, but how do you, go about doing something like that? Is there any like key indicators? Is it mostly gut feeling? Is it, you know what I mean?
For like acquisitions? So.
And I know every situation is so different.
It is different. There was a CEO of another company that Tammy and I had called a few years ago, and just to get some advice. And she had made several acquisitions, and she's now since retired from her company. But we went about it. We tried to solicit companies to see if they were interested, and go around that. But we had talked to her, and she said, quite frankly, almost every acquisition that she had made was built on a relationship from 5, 10, 15 years ago. So it's just a relationship business. So Cody Company we acquired was a relationship for more than 30 years. The East Coast operation that we acquired, Resco, I met him at one of the AD conferences, and we developed a relationship and just happened to be on a fluke phone call, just talking one day, and he was telling me what he was thinking about doing, and I made a comment. It's like, well, man, if you're going to sell, call me. And he's like, are you serious? And I said, absolutely. We would definitely be interested.
That's crazy.
And it was just a relationship thing that we had. So both of ours sort of fit true with what she had said is it's just about building relationships and networking and getting to know other businesses in your industry. And then you never know what can happen.
So I've always wondered that of the soliciting other, because you hear about a lot of other big companies like such and such wants to buy me out. I've always wondered if that, but I always felt like, not that it wouldn't work, but that you would never get anywhere close to a fair price because they're not even wanting to sell, or whatever. Like, you brought the idea up.
Well,
so I always wondered about that.
Yeah, it's been, it's mostly I see your point. I know some people that I network with that sold their company that didn't think they were going to. And, I can't speak for them, but I imagine they didn't want to sell. But, you keep raising a number. I mean, you're going to reach a point where they say, okay.
But that's what
we can't do that.
That's what always blows my mind is I'm like, if somebody came to me and we threw a number out there, it would be way higher than we ever, wanted, because they came to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes you hear those stories of like, okay, and that's what doesn't make sense.
I can name 5 companies right now that had no intention of selling, but they did. So the only thing I can tell you is the number got large enough that they couldn't say no to.
Now, how does that work on the other? Do you think that there's, from Locke Supply standpoint, if you bought a company and you're like, you bought a company and they didn't want to sell, say, for instance, is there other things that you guys know that they don't know, or is there, you know what I mean? Is it locations are this important, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we wouldn't purchase a company that didn't want to be purchased.
Sure.
It wouldn't. I don't know that we could get there, because we're not. Those stories that I told you, those are typically larger organizations that have deep pockets and they're publicly traded, and so it's a whole different game.
Gotcha.
We don't have that kind of.
Okay, so that doesn't happen.
We don't have that kind of ability, huh?
In the real world, so to say.
No. So when we're doing it, the owners they have to want to sell to us, and
Sure.
they like the fit, and the fact that we bring the ESOP to the table for their employees. If they I got to be careful. I don't want to say that people don't care about their employees. If they care about their employees, and they truly do, an ESOP is a big deal.
Gotcha.
It's a big deal.
So that's a huge selling point for you guys.
Absolutely.
When you're going to acquire.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Because it makes a world of difference for the associates. They become owners, and they start, once they're vested, once they're a part of the plan, they start getting allocated shares, and then it is a very big deal for them. So, but not everybody's interested in that. So,
sure.
Some people just want the most they're going to get, and they're out. And,
yeah. Whoever's left, that's what it is.
Which is fine, but
yeah.
There's just 2 different schools of thought.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Man, that's cool. I don't have anything else. 46 minutes. What'd you think? Did it fly by?
It went by pretty fast.
That's what most people say. It flies by. It flies by for me.
So I got to ask, was this? Interesting at all, or
what's for me?
Okay. Well, I haven't told you anything that I haven't said many times before.
Pretty nerdy business type of questions, though.
You got to be into it, though.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Are you pretty? Do you have hobbies? I think everybody has hobbies somewhat outside of business, but are you interested in business? Outside of business, and
you mean am I interested in business outside of what my job is?
Yeah.
No.
What are your hobbies like?
No, I like to play golf.
Golf.
My kids, my wife. I have a group of friends that I spend a lot of time with, but I try to play as much golf as I can. I'm a video game generation. I'm old, but I still play games with my buddies.
That's awesome.
Get beat up by little kids on occasion, but that's normal. But no, I like to play golf. I'm a big OU fan.
You go to a lot of games, or when they have them, I guess.
Some, but not honestly. But that core group of friends that I told you about, we try to get together for
Watch
every
games.
game and make
Gotcha.
a deal out of it. And it's such, I plan things around OU games.
Gotcha.
It's that kind of a deal. So.
Yeah, it's a gathering.
But no, it's just normal stuff. But when you're at the level that you're at and you're growing a business, once you're done with your day, you don't want to go do more. You might.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go do more, and you need to have a good balance. My best advice to a lot of people is make sure you have a good balance between those two worlds, and don't shortchange one for the other. You can do it a little bit, but it'll come back and bite you if you don't watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. How did your, not to drag it on, but how did your, through your age or whatever, were you kind of in district, manager in your 30s, or how did that kind of work?
No, I've always been younger for the position that I held. I don't know. I'm really fortunate and was noticed by the right people. But no, I went from a branch manager, and then I left, like I told you, and then I started back over in the warehouse. And then I'd spend a few months here.
Man, they booted you back down, huh?
Well, that was sort of at my request.
Gotcha.
Where I told you, I was like, I don't want to deal with the headache anymore.
Oh, that's true. But
that only lasted for about 4 months, and then
all right, I'm fine.
I got over my sulking, because you fail. It could be crushing. It was.
I can't imagine.
It was a tough time.
And it's not like they pulled one over on you, but
no, it was just like, man, I mean, it was tough.
Burned you.
Yeah, and so I
And your whole family was involved too, I guess.
Yeah, my mom and dad, they had to restructure some stuff. My wife at the time, we were just getting married. It was right before we got married too, when all this happened. And she was like, "We got to move back to Oklahoma City." Great, I'm fine, you know. So
yeah,
and so it didn't bother her very much, but it was mentally defeating for me, and it took me a little bit to get over it. But once I did, they started moving me around in the company a little bit, and I went from stocking to pulling orders for just a little bit, and then I went into the inventory department, and they asked me to develop a program for the way our system handles shipping adjustments, and then I did that for a while, and then they asked me to be an auditor, and so I was an internal auditor for the company, going around to stores and inventory and things like that.
Gotcha.
And then I went from there to in 2005 we bought a new ERP system, which we currently still have today. And I actually trained almost the whole company for 2 years on how to use that system.
Interesting.
And then after that is when Tammy asked me to become an understudy for Chuck and Louie, who were the vice presidents I was telling you about.
Oh, cool.
And so I started working with those
And
gentlemen.
was she the CEO at the time when she asked you that? Or
No,
she was still?
She was VP of HR, but
Okay.
Their management team and their management at the time, the way they did things, Carter Marsh was the CEO at the time, but they managed very differently kind of than we do today. I mean, we still manage as a team, but there's more hierarchy in it today than there was, just for it's just better.
Yeah.
If there's a way to say that. But anyway, she asked me if I would be doing that, and she sold that to the other members of management, and so they put me in that position, and that was a little tough being as young as I was, but there was no better.
How old were you? You know, any idea how old you were at that point?
I was 29 or 30.
Dang.
And then, so it was a little tough, especially for some associates, but
was that like a public knowledge type of deal, or is it just like kind of you knew and they knew type of deal?
She, as far as the company, how the company operated, I had worked in several places within the organization, and I knew the company pretty well. But I guess Tammy just saw something in me, and
that's interesting.
And that was, you know,
cool.
I was very fortunate. So, but I tell you, some of the best time from a business standpoint was spending a lot of time with Chuck Cross. I almost spent nearly every day with him for like 5 years, and I worked with Louie for a while as well. And then when those gentlemen retired, and even a little bit before, I started working close to Tammy, and after she becomes CEO in 2011, the beginning of 11. So I had a lot of grooming, a lot of mentorship, a lot of being quiet and listening.
Yeah.
Which I did not always do. And she would always pull me off to the side and like, okay, you got to watch how you
coach you up a little.
Yeah. She's like, don't talk so much. Just listen more. And so I went through some of that, which was good for me. And yeah, it just sort of progressed from there. So very fortunate. She wasn't supposed to retire for a couple more years, and at the end of 2018, she decided to speed it up, and we sort of stayed with the plan in place. So
that's cool.
That's good.
I gotta ask you, do you do any plumbing or HVAC stuff? Yeah.
Myself?
Yeah.
No.
See, I wondered that. I
have contractors. Funny. So I tease my COO, Mike Moosey. He's been around the company for a long time, 35 years, and he could be a contractor.
Sure.
Right? He's been around it so long. Jerry Herring, he's an electrician, all intents and purposes. So these guys know.
Yeah.
But so they do a lot of their own stuff. But I tease them. I'm like, listen, how in the world can we sell to contractors, and then you guys don't use the contractors?
Yeah.
I was like, that's not how that works.
That's true.
That's a little hypocritical. So I tease,
Yeah.
But they know. But
that's
no,
the only reason you're doing it.
I absolutely do not. I use our customers, and
that's funny.
I have a set of guys that I use. They do all my stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate the invite, and and no joke, if you want, Jerry can talk to you about horses and feed, and you can have all kinds of fun with that.
Maybe I can get a customer out of the deal, huh?
Yeah, you might be able to. And I'm not kidding. He has a 10-year-old boy that I know he roped. I didn't know him when he roped, but he used to rope competitively, and he really did. And I think he was pretty good.
Yeah.
And but he doesn't brag about that stuff. But I'm pretty sure he was pretty good. But his boy, he got into it. His youngest son is very into it,
Uh-huh.
and he's like 10 now. And I know he ropes with him, and we talk a little bit about that. So he's getting into it.
That's awesome.
And you know, I don't know to put this on the tape, but I know Jerry spends a lot of dang money on horses.
Yeah, all of them do.
Yeah,
all of them do.
So
Those horses are expensive.
I'll email me and I'll give you his information, and you guys, I'll say hey, and then Kyle Klein is VP of Operations for Locke.
Okay.
And he's early 30s.
Okay.
And if you want to get we tease him about being a millennial, but if you want to get a younger kind of sort of perspective on stuff, he would probably be interested too.
That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
Guy.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Well, cool.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, John.
No problem.
Yeah. It's gonna be weird when you take the headphones off. It always makes it feel weird.
I take my headset off when I play.
Oh yeah, you already know.
So if you don't mind me asking, what's your education background?
I just, as far as college, man,